And Canela is the head of Niagara Cares. That is the philanthropy division, the philanthropy part of Niagara, the beverage company. And Anne is here at EarthX. Thank you for being with us. And so what does Niagara care about?
So Niagara Cares, we are the philanthropic division of Niagara Bottling. We're the largest beverage manufacturer in the United States. And we invest in recycling, in the U.S. specifically, access and infrastructure to recycling, and watershed management, which includes access to clean water during times of disaster, and community wellness.
So let's talk about recycling first.
Okay.
And my favorite question there is that I sort of once in a while go to a place where I buy something in a container, and I go outside, I sit at a table, have my lunch, and I have my drink, and and then after that I go to these bins, right? They're there, like trash cans, whatever, and they have all these signs and marks, and I think I have an average intelligence and I'm getting lost nonetheless. And I ultimately throw things in the wrong one, I'm sure, often enough. So how do you tackle that problem?
I mean, you must be sitting in the United States if that's your experience.
Well, yes.
That is part of the issue. It is confusing.
Yes.
And every state and sometimes every county or community, they might treat it slightly differently. So there's a need to standardize the way we think about recycling. What I will say is you won't fail if you recycle something that has number 1 with a chasing arrow on it. It is widely recyclable. So look for the number 1 as a starting point.
But even that, I mean, who knows the numbers in plastic? I mean, there are 6, but how many people in the United States know about that?
We're not very good at recycling in the United States, and it's quite a shame because we're a consumer economy. But if you've been to Europe, obviously you see it is incredibly clean. And so I think there's a culture shift that needs to happen. There's culture shift and there's education. So there's a willingness to recycle, but there's a standard level of laws that need to be laid down on what is recycled and where. Consumer confusion needs to be cleared up. It is real if you do it. So there's also mistrust of the system, I think. But I can say I've seen it. It's amazing. It's filled with robots, believe it or not. You've got amazing sorting facilities now. But there are places actually here in Texas that even if you wanted to recycle, you could not. Because there are still recycling deserts that exist in the United States. So,
but that's where you step in.
That's where we're trying to step in.
So what do you do with? Give me an example of an initiative that supports the recycling infrastructure.
There's a few different options. There's a few ways we're tackling it. The first is infrastructure, and that is just investments in the manufacturing facilities. So the facilities that actually take in the recycling, and that is a big need. We can't tackle that alone, but for instance, in Lubbock, Texas, I think there's 10 or 12 companies coming together to actually build what we call a MRF, and that will provide access, the infrastructure for access to a wide swath of Texas. The other piece is, people have infrastructure, but they don't have access, so they need collection facilities, they need curbside collection, they need, multifamily units need recycling bins. So we will go in and provide those. We do that through the Recycling Partnership, which is an amazing organization. And I think the wonderful thing that they do is we're able to sort of take the community halfway. The community has to commit to the other half. So we know we're getting sustainability financially along the way. And then the third piece is changing consumer behavior. That is actually the trickiest one. And what we've learned, we've invested in some behavioral science where we're literally following people around with clipboards saying, why do you put your bin there? And why do you pick up your trash here? And just trying to understand the mentality. And one of the big takeaways is people are confused.
Yeah.
And you can't counter confusion with logic. You have to counter it.
That is science, I suppose.
With empathy.
Yes.
So you have to start by saying, it is confusing.
I see.
And it is not evenly applied. And so let's talk about what you can do in your local community. So we've, right now, are testing a campaign that we are going to be rolling out nationally. It's in Austin right now. I think we have 16 or 17 billboards, bus wraps, stickers, buttons, volunteer activities. It's really drenching the city of Austin. Austin's important for us because it has infrastructure, but declining participation. So it was a great test campaign, and it's called Love ATX, and it's literally all about love. We have drenched Austin in love.
ATX, I missed
Austin, Texas.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So, and then it goes down to even the community level. So then if you're in Austin, but you live in Deep Eddy, it'll say Love Deep Eddy or Love Clarksville. So it gets micro-targeted. Very simple messaging, and we're starting to see numbers climb up. And I think there's a couple pieces of that. One is maybe the world needs love.
Yes. Agreed. More.
Of any kind,
yes.
Right?
All right.
But also I think because we're sort of speaking to people at the community level without being sort of scientifically educational, but just saying, hey, if you love where you live, just pick up some trash. Yeah. We're seeing numbers increasing, and which is allowing us to then lift that up and take it into other cities. So this is some of the things that we're working on in recycling.
So I told you I'm from the Netherlands, and I was visiting my family a few weeks ago. And it happened to be that particular weekend I was there, it was National Cleanup Weekend, which I didn't even know existed. And I was pretty impressive. But during that weekend, everybody anywhere could just join a cleanup initiative on the beach, in the forest, wherever it was. And I thought, so neat to do that.
It is.
But that is something, probably an extension of Love Austin.
It is.
That is an easy thing to do.
In fact, the United States is about to celebrate its 250th anniversary.
Yes.
And we're an official recycling partner to Keep America Beautiful, which is doing the Greatest American Cleanup. And so in advance of the 250th anniversary, we're trying to supercharge national cleanups. And I know, I live in California. California is doing, I think they've got something like 2,000 cleanups along the beaches, state parks, and just street sweeps that are happening. There is a wonderful thing to the idea of embedding, keeping your world beautiful. And there's also a need to not just clean up, because obviously you clean up once and then in a couple months you're going to have to clean up again. It's trying to get to the root of the problem at the same time. They are both important. But it is also important that we fix the behavior pattern to begin with.
Yes. And obviously you're a representative of a major company and showing, therefore, that companies can do things. But generally speaking, we were talking about the consumer, but what should business do?
Well, businesses, I think, have an accountability to invest. And, they also have, I often say we have a small army of volunteers. We have just under 10,000 employees. They get out in their local communities every day. They adopt highways. We've got plants across the United States and Mexico. We are making big, bold investments. Things like we're going to plant 1 million trees, because trees are the superhero of the environment, in my opinion. And I think We're going to be restoring 1 billion gallons of water to the Colorado River specifically. We're doing cleanups on the Mississippi River. We're making big, bold investments, both to change the environment, but also to take care of our communities and the places where we live.
So it comes here from a company that has the right mindset, if you like.
Yes.
Which is good. But do you think that generally speaking for business, there is a need for legislation to have more, take more responsibility?
Like I sit in groups with corporate partners, big partners and big brand names all day, most weeks. And I would say that the level of commitment from companies that I work with and that you would be familiar because you buy their coffee or their shoes or you, buy their gas is truly authentic from because I think there's a shifting, there's been a shifting mentality of, it was charitable, then it was, corporate social responsibility, and now there's sort of blended finance models where businesses are investing and philanthropy is investing, and then that's benefiting their legislative affairs teams and their marketing teams. And so I think there's enough data out there and enough action that I don't know if legislation is required. What I would say is there are a lot of companies quietly doing amazing things, and it's something that I see every day. And they mobilize their volunteers, their volunteer base or their staff or their business units along with it. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
So let's talk about water. That's your other main focus,
yes.
as I understand it. And you just said you're bringing water back to the Colorado River
yes.
as an example, and the Mississippi River you were talking about. So how does that go? How do you bring water back to
It's fascinating. So, Colorado specifically, the farmers and ranchers along the Colorado River have rights to the water, and those rights are granted to them legally. And we work with an organization called the Colorado River Trust that sort of gets agreements and educates the ranchers and farmers all along there, because what happens is, water may come in, they will sort of get their water rights and gate it up. And so they don't always use all that water. So what the River Trust is able to do is negotiate with the ranchers and farmers to release that water. That requires an investment to sort of pay back the water rights so that they are getting a benefit from releasing the water. That's one example. Last year, we, through that process, released about 130 million gallons of water, which is significant.
But that sounds significant,
yes. Yeah, it is.
But where did that come from?
It comes directly from the hold of water that the ranchers and farmers have. And it's their excess water. And the more opportunity we have to sort of educate and connect to those that are working within that region and are holding those water rights, the more water we can release.
Yes.
So that's one example of the way that we're working Colorado River. We're also, part of our water strategy is tree planting.
Yes.
We planted 200,000 trees last year. But
where?
We planted around the Trinity Rivershed. We planted in New Mexico and Arizona, where a wildfire tore through the top of the state. We planted trees and or gave away trees in almost 50 communities last year. So everywhere in small bits across the United States, but in large bits we were concentrating on forests where they just got wiped out from wildfires. Yeah. And I think one other cool thing that I love that we did, it was one of my favorite projects, is we're working on the Rio Grande.
Yes.
And we restored 7 miles of the Rio Grande. And there's 2 fun ways that it happens. One is we put in 120 beaver analog dams. So basically you go in and mimic, create dams.
Yes.
as close to kind of what the beaver
would have done. Yeah.
would have done, but it's a little more solid. And then the beavers come back and take over.
They do.
So I know, like little beaver subcontractors.
They do their thing. That's interesting. Why don't they do it themselves?
The water in the Rio Grande, part of the issue is it's flowing too rapidly. And what beavers do is when they build those dams, the water spreads out.
Yeah.
And so it creates a natural wetland.
Yes.
But because the water has been going too rapidly, the beavers are disappearing up the river. So this past year, for the first time, they started seeing beavers come back to the Rio Grande. They're incredibly important for water.
Yeah.
So that's a really fun one. The other thing is the deer and elk come and they eat up all the grass.
Yes.
Which also has the water going too fast. So we built log fences essentially for 7 miles just to keep the water spreading out. So,
or release some wolves as they did in Yellowstone.
They did.
Yeah,
it's
and
interesting.
that worked. Had the same impact.
It did.
Because the elk and the deer don't want to be exposed, so they don't eat as much along the river when they know there is a wolf. So they will withdraw and eat.
I didn't realize that was what the wolves were doing.
Yes.
I mean, it's fascinating, right?
So the river started flowing in a different way because of the reintroduction of wolves.
I mean, it's these, nature gives us the solutions it needs.
It sure does, and that's so interesting. So what gives you hope in the work you're doing?
So there is a number of things that give me hope and joy, I think, as well. One is in this work I've had, I think, some unconscious bias that, for instance, young people, they care about the environment, but they're not willing to do anything about it. So, you start with that kind of an approach and then you go try to do something about it. And what I've realized is that they do care and they're doing a ton. And so, we've done some really interesting things with the youth. I have a personal goal and we have a goal internally to try to educate about 5 million youth a month. We really want to...
5 million a month? That's not a small number.
It's not a small... None of my numbers are small.
Well, there you go.
I'm ambitious.
Well, there you go. But how many people do you need to teach 5 million kids?
Well, we can teach them different things, right? And so last year was sort of a year of tests. So we did a little test with this platform called Do Something, which is an amazing platform. And they have about 3 million Gen Z, Gen Alpha on their platform, all focused on some sort of civic action. And we did a 6-week campaign called Binfluencers, which was all about recycling. And they recycled 100,000 bottles in 6 weeks. And so there's these little pieces of light where we thought, well, maybe it will get to 50, or maybe if we're lucky, or we kind of had these small goals. This is why I just keep getting bigger and bigger in my goals.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah.
We have to change the world, so you've got to have some big, ambitious ideas about what that might look like.
Thank you, Canela.
Thank you.